The sponsor is a big deal for a project. They're the ones who actually authorize a project, brings it to life. They are a part of the organization, so somebody really senior within the organization with good authority level at the organization. Now, sponsors are the ones who actually create a document for us called the project charter. The project charter officially authorizes a project and brings it to existence. Now, the project charter is basically a document that kind of, announces to the entire organization that, hey, we are doing this project, we are behind this project, and so as part of the organization, we want your commitment and your support for the project. So that's a very important document. It kind of helps the entire organization and all the people involved in that organization get ready to do a certain project. The sponsor does another very important job. As part of the project charter that they create, they authorize a project manager through those charters. So the role of a project manager comes into existence because of this project charter which the sponsor creates. Now, the project manager, the name, the title, the position, the level of authority they're going to have in terms with regards to the project, and what type of budget management they'll be able to do, things of that sort. So all of that information is in the project charter. So technically, we do not have a project manager if we do not have a project charter. So the sponsor is a very important individual for us. They authorize a project, they authorize a project manager, and they bring this project to life. Now, the sponsor is also assigning funds, committing resources to the project through the project charter. So that's another important aspect of what the sponsor does in terms of creating that charter. Now, the sponsor, we like to refer to the sponsor as a supportive stakeholder in our project. So sponsors are the best people project managers can work with and take help from. They are senior in the organization, all right? They are on your side in doing this project and completing this project. So if you run through roadblocks, if you run through any stakeholder issues, if you're having a hard time getting through to certain users, then the sponsor can come and help you in resolving those issues and getting things done. So sponsors are supportive stakeholders in a project. Now, the change control board is another very important element of projects. It's a group of people which we like to refer to as the change control board, because these are the people who will be processing change requests as they come through in a project, and they will be the ones accepting or rejecting those change requests. Now, the change control boards usually consist of the sponsor. There'll be some project directors involved in it on the board, and then sometimes project managers are also part of that change control board. So what happens in our projects is basically when a change request comes through, and this is very natural for a project, when we are doing a project at an organization, your end users or your community of stakeholders, they will come with change requests in terms of maybe modifications to the scope of the product we are creating, or maybe adding additional features to that product. So they're going to come up with their own reasons and why they want to see a certain change, how it's going to help their everyday job, things of that sort. Now, what happens after that? Once you get a change request like that, you as a project manager, you're going to analyze that change request, and you're going to figure out from your own perspective, by looking at the different plans, the scope, the budget, and the schedules and all of that stuff, and see whether this change actually makes sense or if it's going to add additional risk to the project. You put in your opinion about that change request on that same change form, and then you send it across to the change control board. Now, the change control board will have a discussion about the same change request. They will look at your opinion about that change request. Sometimes they will call in the SMEs, the subject matter experts that have knowledge and information about that area of the project, about that area of the deliverable, and get an opinion from them, sort of like take their advice. But at the end of it, at the end of all of this discussion, the change control board, consisting of the sponsors, the project directors, these are the people who will actually make a decision on the change request, whether to accept it or whether to reject it. Okay, so change control board, especially in our waterfall projects, the traditional sequential projects that we do, the change control board is a very important element of projects. These are the group of people who actually keep a project on track. Next is the steering committee of a project. Now, the steering committee is, again, the senior leadership that is kind of, overseeing the progress of the project. Now, these people are, again, the same group. It's usually the sponsor, the project directors. The project manager can sometimes be a part of this steering committee as well. But what this steering committee does is basically make sure that everything is going as per the plan, the project is running as per the schedule, we are within our budget, there are no additional expenses happening, there are, no additional risks being created, and kind of managing and making sure that the project is heading in the right direction and it's on track. So that's what the steering committee does. It has the same people involved in it as the change control board, but there is a slight difference in the type of work that they're doing. Within the change control board, the team takes the change request decisions, rejecting and accepting those change request decisions. The steering committee is more about taking the overall look at the project and making sure that everything is on track for us. All right, another very important individual that is involved in project work and kind of joins our projects pretty early on. So, once we have a project charter ready and there is a project manager, and a project manager, comes into play, the project manager, when they are trying to gather information about the product, about the project, how this project is going to be done, what type of product does this organization or customer needs. So they need to gather requirements. They need to talk to the stakeholders. They need to talk to the end users. They need to talk to the customer and gather requirements and more information about, what is their current process like? How do they get the work done right now? What type of deliverable they are looking for? How will this product that the project is going to create, how is it going to help them, right? So we are going to understand this from our stakeholders. Now, in the past, there were no business analysts involved in this work. It was usually the project managers kind of doing this activity, running these meetings by themselves. But now this role has become more specialized and more defined because organizations are now starting how important this work is, the requirements gathering that we do in projects. It is so important to the success or failure of our projects. So for that reason, we have this new person called a business analyst involved in this work. Now, business analysts, they come in to gather all kinds of requirements. That's their specialty. They understand requirements, they create requirements documents, and they help us really understand how we will build this product, what type of functionality this product should have, and how important it is to the organization, and in what way, how is it going to fit in that larger workflow, the process flow they have at the organization. So the business analysts, what they do is they ask a lot of questions to the stakeholders, the customer, to define the right requirements. Now, requirements are not only gathered for the product, the deliverable we are creating, but the BA also gathers the requirements for the project work, how, the different tasks and activities are going to be carried out, what is needed in order to build this deliverable, as well as training requirements. So when we have a product ready, is this community of stakeholders ready to use that product? Are they trained enough to use the product, or will they require additional training to be able to use the product correctly? Because remember, our projects, if you think about it, are never really successful unless the stakeholder community or the end users or our customer, in other words, knows how to use the product successfully. So, what's the point of doing a project where we build a product, but the end users just don't know how to make full use of it? I would call it a failed project. So the training requirements are gathered by the business analyst here. they make a documentation of all of these different requirements. Now, these meetings are a partnership. All right, so it's a collaborative effort between the project manager and the business analyst. So you call these meetings as a project manager, you invite all the relevant stakeholders to that area, and then you have the business analyst really, ask tons of questions in these meetings to understand, how this product should look like at the end of the day and what's required to make this a successful product. Now, as a project manager, you'll be facilitating these sessions. Okay, so it's a technique facilitation, and that's what you'll be doing in these meetings. You're not the ones asking questions now. It's the business analyst doing that, but you are there in charge to make sure that these meetings are successful, they are productive, that the right discussions happening, the right questions are being asked, the stakeholders are being able to explain themselves clearly. So that's very, very important. And so project managers do that in these meetings. Now, like I said, these meetings were actually conducted by the project manager and led by the project manager in the past, but that has changed as organizations and businesses started realizing how important these requirement gathering sessions are to a project. And that's how a business analyst role came up. That's how business analyst kind of became a part of the project for that reason. Now, these requirement gathering sessions, doing them in the right way, collecting all the detailed requirements, is basically the most important thing you can do in a project to make sure that the project is a success. Now, I'll share a story with you about one of my projects that I did and how the requirements gathering session went and what happened as a result of it. Now, I was doing an implementation project some time back. It was a Oracle, a mobile supply chain implementation project. And when I went into this project and we started having these requirement gathering sessions, even though there was a business analyst involved in these sessions, the requirements that we were able to gather from discussions with the warehouse department, with the warehouse community, from those requirements, what we understood is that these guys probably just needed a vanilla application, something right out of the box should be enough to really help them, do their work and kind of make it easy for them. And with that understanding, we started designing for that application and, just doing the implementation, creating that and setting that up for the customer. Now comes the testing time when we needed to test the application itself to make sure that everything, is working as per the client's requirements. And we started gathering these test cases and test scenarios to run through those testing. It came to the attention of my team and myself that, their workflows or the way they carried out the work was pretty heavily customized. And in fact, a vanilla application, something right out of the box, is just not going to satisfy those requirements. So you can imagine the chaos it created. Halfway through the project, we realized that, what we were building up to that point is actually not going to work. It's not the right product. Now, everything came to a standstill at the time. And then, the senior management got involved. The steering committee, of course, was part of these discussions. And people were asking questions such as, how did I, as a project manager in charge of this project, how did I mess up this way? How did I miss on such requirements? So I'll tell you, not a very good place to be in to answer those type of questions. But so this project that initially was supposed to be done in a time frame of about 4 months and would have cost the customer about $1.5 million, now will take about 7 to 8 months to complete, and the customer would have to pay $7 million to do the same project. So you can imagine how upset they were. So at that point, they were actually, the senior management of the organization was ready to just, pack this project and not do it at all, just terminate the project. But the warehouse community was actually looking for an application like this for a long time. So there was a lot of pressure from the warehouse community on the organization. And because of that, they, decided to continue with the project and, pay the $7 million and get the project done. So this happened in my project because I didn't make sure that the requirements gathering was done correctly. We messed up big time on the requirements gathering sessions. We rushed through it. We didn't give it enough time and attention, and we came out with the wrong requirements. And that way we created a wrong application, which was of zero use to this customer. So for this reason, during these requirements gathering sessions, using a good business analyst, facilitating these sessions as a project manager is critical. It's critical to the success of a project.